girl fight video that's gone viral.
Yeah, this one's very upsetting. It's from Brooklyn, and it appears to show an unprovoked attack on an innocent woman. And as Fox 5's Dan Bowens tells us, the video...
Arrests and fights inside a Mesquite Mall tonight. We're getting a better idea of what happened at Town East Mall early this morning. YouTube video showed it all. You can see people throwing wreaths and trash cans at each other as several fights broke out.
As they're chased by police.
This morning, crowd control was needed at a Houston area mall. Hundreds of people were lined up to secure their purchase of the new Air Jordans, and some of them...
Eric Holder should be in prison. He's got Russell Simmons, Kim Kardashian, Lil Wayne. You know why nobody pays attention, Quanell? Because those people, no one's going to listen to them.
Will we ever rise as a people? Or are we on our way out? Since 1865, we have experienced little to no change collectively. Sure, we have a few that have made it to the top. Well, that's what they thought. But most go to the grave, broke, busted, and disgusted, passing on nothing to the next generation. They do pass on something that's gone before you know it. I ain't really talking about superficial wealth like paper money. I'm talking about stuff with real value. You know, land and gold, silver, real estate. Stuff with real value, you see. I think we've been tricked. Everybody else gets damn near a whole pie, while we all have to share one slice, and we fighting over that. Something just don't seem right. Even our brightest and best get the shakedown. I've never seen a group of people like my people, who seem to be running on the track, but the path gets longer, rougher, and harder to run on. I feel like we've been climbing a mountain with ice boots on for a long time now, but this mountain is fighting against us and getting more steep and taller with each step. When I look around, I see the hopelessness in the eyes of my people everywhere. The hopelessness turns into rage sometimes, even madness. Heavenly Father, where are you?
The Lord shall smite thee with madness, and blindness, and astonishment of heart. And thou shalt grope at noonday, as the blind gropeth in darkness. And thou shalt not prosper in thy ways, and thou shalt be oppressed and spoiled evermore, and no man shall save thee.
It seems like our problems are piling one on top of another, and no real change in sight. When we think that change is coming, it gets further and further away from us. From day to day, we seem to be wandering around in wonderland, not knowing what's real and what's illusion. When some of us choose to exit the matrix, we are met with resistance by those who enjoy their delusion. We have a real enemy that is constantly fighting us in a desperate attempt to utterly destroy us. But we so blinded by lies that our minds even pity our own enemies. The tripped out thing about it is that we've turned the fight on one another, and the fight is in full swing. All my life I had to fight. I had to fight my bosses. I had to fight my enemies. I had to fight this system. But I ain't never thought I had to fight amongst my own people. I loves my people. Yah knows I do. But I'll walk away before I let them keep me down. What will our end be if we continue down this path?
I always thought that curses could only be put upon an individual.
More cops came rushing the house, and I'm laying there screaming, asking somebody to help my granddaughter, because he just shot her in the head, and he wouldn't even help her. They turned on the light and seen that she had been shot and carried out the house. Oh!
I never thought an entire race of people could be cursed. From person to person, generation to generation, I look around and I see the curse of generational curses upon the so-called black race.
And some of the questions that were asked about the black race, can I just add my 2 cents? Now, I know something about black people because I was raised around black people. I'm a white guy, I think. My family, you never really know. You just show up at the hospital and take whatever color comes. But there's been Satan has tried to destroy the black race for many, many years. And I want to tell you why, my opinion. I was telling Brother Bill about that in the back. I am an avid student of reading. I have a phenomenal library in every kind of subject you can think of, and beside the Bible. And I realized, and I studied a lot of different nationalities and creeds, and I found that the only race that ever did this was the black race. That we're in slavery for over 400 years. Yet they have such a terrible thing today on black violence. You see it, you hate for night to come because a young black man's gonna die. Somebody gonna get shot, something terrible. And I thought, why is there such animosity among the black people for black people? And then when I studied, I began to realize that for 400 years, the black man and the black woman was put in slavery. You were hung, burned, raped, shot, stolen from. Yet it's the only race that sang Amazing Grace while it happened. Never blamed God. Still taught your children about Jesus Christ and Him crucified. While you were being raped, hung, put on fire, destroyed. The only race that literally said, we will not blame God for this terrible tragedy. Sang Amazing Grace, wonderful spirituals. Because Satan knew there was great talent given to the black race. And he thought he could destroy you by burning you, hanging you, killing you, denying your children education, everything you could possibly think of. But you still kept giving God glory. You still kept singing Amazing Grace. Still teaching your children. So he said the only way you can destroy this race is from within. And now his last bastion of what he's trying to do is cause you to hate each other. But I'll tell every black man, woman, boy, and girl, if you go back to singing Amazing Grace, he's gonna go to hell. You'll quit killing each other. If you go back to your ancestors that refused to deny God and His grace, then this junk will stop. I'm Jesse Duplantis, and I approve this message. Hallelujah. Glory.
The mind of the so-called black man and woman has been raped worldwide. Even our acceptance of the label black gives credence to a diminished capacity or existence in a white world. When you look at how the word black is even defined, it means sinister and evil, soiled, dirty, and all kinds of evil stuff. In contrast to what it means to be white, which means pure, clean, unsoiled, and all of the good stuff, you see. But this subtle sorcery is the very reason why we have so much self-hatred in the so-called Black or African American community. We came to this country in physical chains, but now the descendants of our former slave masters have us in mental chains. They messing with our minds, y'all, and they have it on lockdown. Nothing we say or do is ever good enough. If we choose to look like ourselves, wearing our afros or braids or locks or waves, we're demonized, marginalized, and penalized. If you choose to wear traditional tribal clothes, you're looked upon like a non-conforming idiot. Cultural pride is not allowed and is labeled divisive.
You're the only people in the country that have no communities. I can drive down here like Tom Sampson took me last night out here out to Universal Studio. Riding down the expressway, all I see, Tahiti Town, Little Korea Town, Japan Town, Chinatown. I said, where in the hell is Black Town? And he told me, he said, I said, take me to it. He took me down to Central City, and it's called, what was it called? Skid Row.
The stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low. And he shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him. He shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail.
I said, please wake up, black folk. I'm tired. I'm sick and tired of black folk not doing right. Just play each other. Quit hating each other. Hating each other. Well, I can't get along with him because I never did like that Negro. Who cares? I'm not asking you to make love to them and have babies. I'm saying take care of him. Protect him. Buy from him. Support him.
His eye shall be evil toward his brother, and toward the wife of his bosom, and toward the remnant of his children, which he shall leave.
You either play as a team or you lose by default. Basketball, football, and baseball are team sports. And black folk are the only one that want to play as a team. I got people that won't come out, they won't practice, they won't rehearse. If I throw the ball to them, they either won't catch it or they do catch it. They'll catch the ball and try to run home. I'm going to keep this damn ball.
And thine eye be evil against thy poor brother, and thou givest him naught. And he cry unto Yahuwah against thee, and it be sin unto thee.
They see one of their own men running on their side, running with the ball, they'll just try to tackle him. I call them into a huddle like this to get together and plan some strategies. Guess what they do? First thing they run out and tell the news. I know what them Negroes up to, I'm going to tell you. You can't win if you don't play as a team.
Her eyes shall be evil toward the husband of her bosom, and toward her son, and toward her daughter, and toward her young one that cometh from between her feet, and toward the children which she shall bear.
I am tired, y'all. I spent my whole life fighting for black folks. Something I said, maybe I went the wrong way myself.
We as a people are clueless. We act shocked when we hear about Trayvon Martin and George Zimmerman being acquitted, or Michael Brown's killer not even being charged. Time and time again, this country have shown you what to expect from them. We are in La La Land.
Lord.
I feel like I'm lost in space. Just look at the so-called black community. It's obvious that there's something wrong. Just go to any so-called black neighborhood, and I'm quite sure that there's a street called Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. Why does it always look so ghetto? Young men walking around with their pants sagging, hanging out in the streets, wasting time doing nothing, groping around in the noonday. It's not a coincidence that there are drugs in our communities and a liquor store on every corner. No jobs, but poor choices of food because there are cheap fast food restaurants on every corner. Why is this? We are being systematically slaughtered. Our health is deteriorating, and all we can think about is a McDonald's hamburger.
Ooh, I'm loving it. Yeah, McDonald's, what I want, McDonald's.
Our African American leaders are chip off the old masses block and help to maintain white supremacy over our people. They are too scared to rise against this system. And can you blame them?
So-called black people are the most spiritually connected people on the planet. You know, the Bible says that if my people, which are called by my name, would humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven and forgive their sin and heal their land. But see, the problem is the so-called black man and woman don't know who they are. A lost identity is a loss of spiritual consciousness. The Bible tells us to be not conformed to this world, but to be ye transformed by the renewing of our minds. But we have conformed to the likeness and the image of a people that are spiritually dead. We need to be revived. It is high time for us to awake out of our sleep. It's time to wake up, y'all.
Pretty rebellious. I was involved in the drug trade, drug addiction. I've been shot and stabbed and hit the head with my hair wouldn't grow. Never wanted to back down, you know, and kids were in foster placement, you know, were bad.
Psalms 44, verse 13 through 15. You make us a reproach to our neighbors, a scoffing and a derision to those around us. You make us a byword among the nations, a laughing stock among the peoples. All day long my dishonor is before me, and my humiliation has overwhelmed me.
All right, we know it's the dinner hour, so here is an appetite buster alert, shall we say. 2 Waffle House workers in Forest City, Arkansas are busted for doing their hair in the restaurant's kitchen in front of customers. That video is going viral.
Well, WREG's Michael Quander went to Arkansas to talk with the man who shot the Weaves and Waffles video.
A couple of Forest City Waffle House customers say they got more than they expected with their meals.
It was just coughing, just making noises like that.
Antonio Robinson says his friend found hair in his food early Friday morning.
When I looked up at him, he went to pulling out strings of hair out of his mouth.
Well, he saw this moments later and started recording on his cell phone.
She dipped her head down in the pot, and when it came back up, she was drying it off with one of the towels.
Health inspectors confirmed the video shows 2 Waffle House employees doing hair in the same place food is cooked for customers.
I see people do that in the houses and things like that, but for a restaurant, I don't know.
Well, St. Francis County health inspectors tell me they're launching a full investigation into this video. They tell me anytime hair is done in the kitchen of a restaurant, it is a health violation. We took the problem straight to the store's manager.
Can I come in?
He wouldn't let our cameras inside, but told WREG the employees in the video were fired.
I mean, is that acceptable at all?
It's unacceptable. That's why we're terminating.
Were you outraged at all when you saw it?
I was embarrassed, but it's all taken care of now. That's all I can say.
We were sent to the company's corporate offices in Atlanta, where a spokesperson said, "We do not tolerate these behaviors and strive to provide a clean, safe environment for all of our customers."
And people can, learn from this and be clean everywhere, keep people from getting sick.
Reporting in Forest City, Michael Quander, WREG, News Channel 3.
WREG just obtained a copy of the health inspection report from this afternoon. The business passed. Investigators only noted that floors needed to be cleaned underneath cooking equipment.
This morning, crowd control was needed at a Houston area mall. Hundreds of people were lined up to secure their purchase of the new Air Jordans, and some of them got a little aggressive. Police had lots of manpower on hand to control the crowds. Local 2's Melissa Hawks joins us live now from Willowbrook Mall with more. Melissa.
Courtney, this crowd dispersed about an hour and a half ago, but when we first came out there here this morning at the height of this, there was about 500 people here lined up right behind me in this parking lot, and that was just at one of the entrances here at Willowbrook Mall. And even this morning, some of the glass doors here behind me at this entrance are broken because it got pretty heated out here with the crowd. Take a look at this crowd. People of all ages waiting in line. Some say they camped out since 8 o'clock on Saturday night.
The Legend Blues is supposed to be the best 11s that ever came out.
All of these people hoping to get a ticket to purchase the Air Jordan, the Legend Retro 11. But things got a little out of hand while the crowd waited for their ticket voucher.
There was a lot of fighting and a lot of movement. People were running, trying to get in the store. It was crazy.
You can see the glass is shattered on not just one, but 2 panels on these doors leading into Willowbrook Mall.
People just running everywhere, being crazy.
Dozens of Houston police officers responded to help get the crowd in order. Police put up crime scene tape to help keep people in a single file line. Officers say they asked the stores giving out vouchers to issue them a few hours early to avoid any more chaos. Quentin Harris was one of the lucky ones who got a ticket.
Oh, I feel great. I feel awesome. I know that I'm going to come up here and get my shoes.
Others weren't so fortunate.
They ran out of bags.
No word on exactly how many vouchers were given out and what's going to happen now is anyone who got a voucher this morning will come back on December 20th. That's when they will actually get a pair of these shoes in their hands. We also checked around at different malls around town, and we have learned that there are similar long lines happening at Memorial City Mall, also Deerbrook Mall and Almeida Mall. But so far, police tell us that this was the most out of hand crowd. Reporting live at Willowbrook Mall, Melissa Hawks, KPRC, Local 2.
Jeremiah 24:9. I will make them abhorrent, an offense to all the kingdoms of the earth, a reproach and a byword, a curse and an object of ridicule, wherever I banish them. 1 Kings 9:7. Then I will cut off Israel from the land I have given them, and will reject this temple I have consecrated for my name. Israel will become a byword and an object of ridicule among the people. Psalms 109:25. I am an object of scorn to my accusers. When they see me, they shake their heads. Jeremiah chapter 33, verse 24. Have you not noticed that these people are saying, their Elohim has rejected the two kingdoms he has chosen? So they despise my people and no longer regard them as a nation. When you look at the so-called black woman, the black woman has become so defiled in her way to where she has completely forgotten the ways of Elohim. Many of us, we conform to this world and we think that because we're Christians, that the Most High is going to look at the deeds that we do in our body and he's going to excuse these deeds because we call ourselves Christians. But this vileness that has crept into the so-called black woman's life and in her mind and her body is one of the reasons why the Most High has allowed his curses to take over. When you look at what the scripture says, it says that our women are going to be bald, that they're going to not have husbands, that their ways were going to be just unstable. Their lives were going to be unstable. Now, the same with the black man. The black man is being killed in record numbers, shot dead in the streets like dogs. No regard for his life. And when you look at our children, the Most High said, because you reject knowledge, I'm going to reject you and your children. And when you look at the fact that our children are being killed in the streets, our men are being killed in the streets, our women are being killed in the streets, our old and our young, you have to look at what is causing this. But many of us refuse to face the facts of what has brought us to this place. Now, it's in the word. The scripture tells us, it tells us that if my people which are called by my name would humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven, forgive their sin and heal their land. But our people ain't doing that. Instead of turning from their wicked ways, you know what they do? They turn to excuses. They say, don't judge me. Who do you think you are? You can't tell me what to do. Literally what they're doing is they're shooting the messenger, because the Most High in his word has told you to do these things. And when you have someone else try to tell them, this is what you must do to repent. You must turn away from your ways and turn back to the ways of the Father. Stop going after your own righteousness and consider the righteousness of the Most High. Then you can get healed in your land, healed in your body, healed in your mind. But our people are saying, nope, I don't hear what you're saying. I don't receive it, and I will not do it. And so as long as we have that attitude, the Most High is going to continue to take that spiritual belt and whoop the hell out of us.
I was addicted, afflicted, and so caught up in my spirit. I was bound by the chains and searching for fame. Stuck on the lost train with my energy drained, just trying to maintain as the pendulum swings in this Babylonian Egypt, trying not to complain. I was praying to white Jesus when Yehoshua heard me. Though here white is clean and black is portrayed dirty. When this world said I'm nothing, my God said I'm worthy. Once trapped in delusion, now fly like a birdie. That means I'm above all the lies of the devil. One time defined by the confinements of Christianity, now for y'all I'm a rebel. Hopping over the obstacles placed in front of me, this race of righteousness, yeah, I'm running, see, it's more to the image that's been painted and been pushed. Although we beat Israel, they told us we were cush. They told us that our history started on the back of some bus, and when the Most High said cry aloud, they said quiet and hush. So I'll lift up my voice and I'll yell and I'll scream, walking in the statutes and commandments of the most holy Elohim. And you might just need to pinch yourself, because this is not a dream, this here is reality. I'm no Martin Luther King. I'm not joining hands with wickedness, not letting freedom ring. And how subtle was the serpent to make peace and evil scheme. If you say that you believe in God, you must believe his word. So-called Jesus never came in peace, he came to bring the sword, you see. The Most High created us a holy people. He created us above all and he made no others equal. This is meat, not milk, not for the weak nor the feeble. When the world said you see through, Most High said I see you.
And then I remember talking to my grandmother once. I would go down there every year. And Caucasian people would come through selling fish. And I would notice that Grandma would stand on the porch when they would come up and they would say, Easter, you want some fish today? And she would go, now sometimes it might be a child of 12 or 13. And her reply would be, yes, Mr. Johnson, I think I will get some fish today. Now I'm sitting there looking. Did I just hear him refer to my grandmother by her first name when we were taught to be very respectful of elders, Mr. and Mrs., or, you know, you had to be respectful. And here this young Caucasian boy is referring to my grandmother, who was well up in age, as Easter. So I asked her one day, I said, Grandma, I waited a little longer to ask her, and I said, Grandma, why do you talk to him? How did I put it? How do you answer him by Mr. and you're the elder? And her reply was, baby, it's just the way it is.
I used to take two of my children to speech therapy. They needed speech therapy, and the youngest one, she began to act out and misbehave in the place of business where we were. And I made her sit down on my lap because, you know, it's a public place. There's not so much that you can do, especially when, you know, there's other people sitting around watching the behavior of your child. And she got upset and she smacked me in the face. So I grabbed her hand and I said, you know, don't do that. You know, you don't hit mommy. You don't hit mommy. And she took her free hand and punched me on the other side of the face. So I said, oh no, this has to be dealt with. At that very moment, my other child was done with his speech session, so we left. We went out to the car, and I disciplined her at the car. Now, just a little regular 1, 2, 3. You know, you don't do that to me. You know, I'm your mother. You know, what you're supposed to do, because your child is not supposed to hit you. They have to understand at very young that they cannot put their hands on you. And at that very moment, I was approached by this woman, a white woman, and she's got her hand in my face, and she's, I saw you, I saw what you did, I saw what you did. And I said, but you don't even know what happened. I don't care, you're crazy. She starts calling me, you know, all kinds of names and things. So we get into an argument in the parking lot, because I said, my kids are standing here, I can't allow them to see this woman chastise me for doing what I know is correct. She doesn't know what happened or why I disciplined my child, and she just, you know, came at me very roughly, like I was a child, and she threatened to call the police on me. So I left, and then the next thing I know, 3 police cars come flying in front of our house, and I had just told my husband what happened. So they come through there, they asked me to pull my daughter's pants down. At the time she was 2 years old. They asked me to pull her pants down, they're putting flashlights on her and things like that, and they're looking, they say, yeah, we got a call that you assaulted a child. And I said, assaulted? I said, no, I did not assault anyone. And I explained to the police officer what happened. And he said, well, we got to send this to, he had to send it to his boss, and then I make it a phone call. I never did, but that situation, it bothered me because I said this lady had no clue what happened. And she called the police and said that I assaulted my child. And I was upset. I was angry about it for a very, very long time. And I never saw her again, thank goodness. But that was a situation that stuck out to me when I began to read Deuteronomy 28. And I said, wow, because their children act out all the time. And my child did something to me that she didn't see what happened, and the first thing she does is call the police on me and says that I assaulted my child. That could have gotten all of my children taken away from me over a situation that had to be dealt with at the moment that it was done, because she was 2. If I wait till we got home, she wouldn't have known why I was disciplining her. So it had to be done at that moment, and I didn't abuse her. It was 1, 2, 3 smacks on the leg, and then I was speaking to her. So that was a situation that I had that reminds me of one of the curses that we are under their rules, and nothing that we do is going to be correct, no matter how wrong it is. If, you know, for an example, your child does something to you, it's almost like you can't even say anything to your own children.
Now, one of the punishments that the Most High said he was going to put up on us because of our disobedience, because of our total disregard of his laws, statutes, and commandments, he said those that hate us shall rule over us. Now, we have some ancient enemies who have a perpetual hatred for us, that the Most High said this perpetual hatred was going to burn in them forever. And so we see that playing out. But the Most High has allowed them to be a rod of correction for us because we refuse to take heed to his word. You see, we refuse to take heed to his word because we have established our own righteousness. And so therefore, the Most High said, if you walk contrary unto me, I'm going to walk contrary unto you. And so that's why the Most High has turned his back on us. The word actually said that. He says, if you walk in your own way and you disregard my ways, I'm going to show you my backside. And so that's what the Most High is doing. He is showing us his backside. He said, you're going to look at the back of my head because I'm going to totally ignore you when the day of trouble comes upon you. This is why we as a people have got to repent. We have got to stop making excuses because all of the things that you see playing out in the so-called black community, it's like a vicious, never-ending circle of judgment because we have a vicious, never-ending circle of disobedience.
He separated my shoulder and I had to have surgery. I had over 30 bruises on my body.
Right now at 5, a woman files a lawsuit against a Louisville police officer and Metro government. Good evening, I'm Vicki George. The woman says an off-duty officer used excessive force and it all stemmed from a parking dispute. WLKY's Annalisa Gale is live at police headquarters with details of this lawsuit. Annalisa?
Vicki, the incident happened in August of last year. LMPD has already investigated and reprimanded the officer, but the defendant in this case says it's something that continues to haunt her. Antoinette Houston says the time is around 3 a.m. in August of 2013. She made a stop at the Thorntons on Bardstown Road to grab a snack, but she says she left with injuries that have kept her out of work for more than a year.
I went in, I pulled up and I pulled up crooked, and a man pulled up behind me and asked me why was I parked that way.
That man was an off-duty LMPD officer, Scott Sturgeon. According to Metro Police, Houston was parked in a handicapped parking spot. She was asked to move her car, which she did, but then one of her tires was over the line. Houston says that's when the officer, Sturgeon, insisted to see her driver's license. Houston claims she did nothing wrong.
I asked him, why are you harassing me? I haven't done anything.
Houston says her 9-year-old son was also in the car with her, and she was fearful of the officer, so she called 911 for another officer. She says as she waited for other police, the officer demanded her license nearly 3 times, but she says she refused to hand it over until backup showed up. But the officer didn't wait.
I did tell him that I was afraid of him and that I needed someone else, but it didn't matter. He just reached in my car really quick, opened the door from the inside, and he snatched me out.
That's when surveillance footage shows Houston being taken over to the officer's car. According to Officer Sturgeon, he feared Houston was driving under the influence, but Houston says she told him she doesn't drink.
The police officer manhandled her, handled her like she was a rag doll.
He separated my shoulder and I had to have surgery. I had over 30 bruises on my body.
She's continuing to suffer. And so I'm just trying to get justice for her, whatever that may be.
Officer Sturgeon was reprimanded for violating the standard operating procedure for courtesy. He was exonerated by LMPD for excessive use of force. Live here at Metro Police Headquarters, Annalisa Gale, WLKY News.
Get back. This video is of an NYPD officer assaulting a fellow officer. The man in the green pants is first grade detective Harold Thomas.
He throws me to the ground head first, and they commence to roughing me up, to beat me up.
My son and everybody else that's around there is yelling, he's a cop. You know, what are you doing? He's a cop.
He's a cop! Thomas is describing an incident that happened 2 years ago. After partying here at La Marina nightclub in Washington Heights with his son and friends, the detective says the night took a terrible turn. When he walked back to his SUV, a Cadillac Escalade, 2 uniformed cops approached him and said Thomas's car fit the description of a shots fired call. The detective tells us he quickly identified himself.
I could never just show one without the other, you know. If I show somebody the shield, we want to see the ID card, you know. So I showed them both, and I said, I'm Detective Harold Thomas from JTTF, that's who I am.
The 28-year veteran detective had an official police plaque in the window of his SUV, his shield, and his service weapon. So at that point, Thomas thought showing his ID would be enough. But he says it was far from enough and far from over when a third uniform officer showed up.
The third cop comes up, and he's a John Wayne. He spins me around, slams my head on the hood of my car, which actually made a dent in the hood of my brand new car. He grabs me by the seat of my pants, throw me to the ground head first.
With Detective Thomas down on the ground in handcuffs, hurt, his own adrenaline running high, and according to Thomas, the more officers that arrived to the scene, the more things got out of control. And when a lieutenant arrived,
I says, Luke, can I talk to you? You know, I'm expecting him to take control of the situation, and he just, took it to another level. He starts very unprofessional. He starts cursing me, you're a disgrace, blah, blah, blah. And he takes his hand and he hits me in the face and he mushes me, almost knocks me down.
you hear them say, hey, he's one of us. How did you feel at that point?
First I'm dazed because I was almost knocked unconscious, but I'm in disbelief. But then I regain my senses and I'm saying to myself, these guys are in trouble.
The story took some twists and turns and led to charges against Thomas that include DWI, resisting arrest, and assaulting a police officer. But those charges were immediately dismissed. The case lagged out for at least a year and led to an internal investigation. In the end, this decorated officer felt isolated and betrayed.
Even though I did more in my career than all 3 of those cops put together, they decided, you know what, we're going to look out for the 3 white officers.
The incident changed Thomas. After going through hearings and departmental reviews, Thomas retired, still proud of the work he had done throughout his career and still believes the NYPD is the best department in the country, but...
After my incident, I didn't even want to have anything to do with any uniform officers. I didn't trust them after that. And I've been with them for 29 years. Police officers, even though you got to be hard, should also be sympathetic.
A glimmer of hope came to Thomas when Police Commissioner Bill Bratton took over.
Commissioner Bratton is on the right track. It's all boils down to training and supervision, and when a cop messes up, you gotta discipline them. That's the only way they're gonna learn.
Thomas's son was also assaulted when he tried to help his father. The video you see there in the piece made a big difference on how the case was handled. Tamsin.
What a story, Nicole. Well, so you hear the officers say he's one of us. What is the protocol when officers stop one of their own, and was that actually followed here?
Well, the policy states the uniformed officer is always in charge, so Thomas was supposed to do exactly what that uniform officer said, even show his ID 30 times, whatever it took. But out of frustration, Thomas did not do that.
In May of 2010, 16-year-old Khalif Browder was walking home from a party with a friend when he was stopped by police. An officer said a man had accused them of stealing his backpack.
They came out the police car and they searched us, but we didn't have anything on us. So I was thinking the next step was we're free to go. We're just gonna walk home.
A high school sophomore, like millions of others in America, with a love for basketball and professional wrestling. Khalif was arrested and charged with robbery.
They set my bail for $3,500. My mom told me she didn't have the money, and it was true. She didn't have the money. $3,500 was a lot for my mom.
He was taken to one of the toughest jails in the country, Rikers Island, where he would spend the next 3 years for a crime he says he didn't commit, without ever going to trial.
The only thing on my mind was I gotta go home. I didn't do this. Now I'm in jail around these grown men, and they're fighting each other, and I don't know. It was like hell on earth. We were beaten. We were beaten, stomped by the correction officers, hit with weapons. They tackled me in my cell where there wasn't any cameras. They grabbed me up, they put me on the bed, and they were just punching and kicking me. And then they maced me in my eyes, they maced me in my nose and my mouth. I couldn't breathe.
3 years of alleged beatings, gang violence, and over 900 days in solitary confinement, all while he waited for a court date that never came.
It was just, we're not ready for trial, we're not ready for trial. And every single court date, I always had it on my mind, I'm going home this court date, I'm going home this court date. The judge told me if I plead guilty, I would release from jail that same day. But I didn't do it. You're not gonna make me say I did something just so I could go home. If I gotta stay here 5 more months just to prove that I'm innocent, then so be it. It's just heartbreaking, and it's like, I felt like they were just playing with my life.
In June of 2013, all charges against Khalif were dropped, and he was released from jail. But by then, he'd missed his junior year in high school, his senior year, proms, graduation.
I lost my childhood. I lost my happiness. I don't really tell too much people about this, but it's like, sometimes I talk to myself, and it's like, it's actually embarrassing. Sometimes on the train or the bus, I have a whole conversation with myself for 5 to 10 minutes, and then it's like, you're really crazy. Like, you really talk to yourself. But being in solitary confinement that long without talking to anybody, I feel like that maybe had something to do with it, because that's where those habits started to pick up. You know, deep down, I'm a mess, because it's like, I'm 21, and in the inside, I feel like I'm 40. I always believed in standing up for what I felt was right. And if I would have just been guilty, then my story would have never been heard. Nobody would have took the time to listen to me. I'd have been just another criminal.
South Carolina State Trooper Sean Gruber has been fired after video has been released of his interaction during a routine traffic stop. Now, he pulled over a man by the name of LeVar Edward Jones. Apparently, he wasn't wearing his seatbelt.
Oh,
here's
he
how
in
it
a
all
gang?
played out.
Can I see your license, please? Get out of the car! Get out of the car! Get on the ground! Get on the ground!
I just got my license. You said get my license. I grabbed my license right there. That's my license right there.
Put your hands behind your back. 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 Put your hands behind your back.
What did I do, sir?
Are you hit?
I think so. I can't feel my leg. I don't know what happened. I just grabbed my leg.
Brakes on 866. I need a 1052.
Why did you shoot me?
Well, you dove head first back into your car.
I'm sorry.
Then you jump back out. I'm telling you, get out of your car.
I'm sorry. I didn't hear 2 words, sir.
He's saying, I'm sorry to the cop. Who just shot him. He's apologizing to an incompetent police officer who just shot him.
So this is a picture of Milton, Rosa Parks, and Dr. Hy Kornblue. He was similar to his mom. He was a community worker. He was always there speaking for who he considered the weak. Milton took action to ensure and promote individual rights. And that was one of his trainings that he got in working with Rosa Parks. He was always addressing institutional racism. I admired him for that. He had a mental disability that became apparent as a young adult, when he was probably about 24, 25. But in spite of this, he lived his life independently. The tragedy of his death and how it happened, how they circled him, assassinated him, and he had no idea that those police would do that to him.
him so many times?
Policeman, after he's on the ground, turned him over, handcuffed him, and put his foot on his back. And that's in the video. And his blood running down the street like water. And he wasn't a threat. I mean, he had a little pen knife.
Now they shot him about 15 times.
So to have 8 people to stand in front of one human being and shoot at him 46 times and hit him 14 times, it's been devastating to our family.
For some reason, even we have a very short memory of this, and we try to just toss it out of our minds. But even here in America, you still have lynchings going on. Our people don't want to talk about it, they don't want to deal with it, and somehow they think that if we kind of like push it in the backs of our minds, that it's going to go away.
We're live on scene in Delaware with our brother Henry Fordham.
Yes.
Our brother has a very, very serious story that he wants to share with the black family out here. We've had many interviews on the radio station, One Horizon Radio, where brothers and sisters around the country are facing direct assaults from Europeans, from whites, murders from white police officers, lynchings in Louisiana, and now we have a lynching that occurred, at least one lynching that we know of that occurred here in Delaware, and we actually have a brother who actually successfully escaped a lynching, our brother Henry Fordham, and he's going to share his story. We're actually in the park where the white males tried to lynch our brother, and we're going to go through the interview so you can hear from our brother exactly what he went through. So, Brother Henry, I want to start off asking, you said how many white males was it that you said came to try to lynch you?
It was 2.
It was 2 of them?
2 white Caucasian men.
So when was the first time that you ever seen these 2 Caucasian males?
I seen them when I walked on Governor Street in Dover, downtown.
Okay.
And one of them salamed me, gave me the Islamic greeting. And as he gave me the Islamic greeting, I salamed him back, and that was that.
Now, how do you think he knew you were Muslim to salam you?
I guess because of my beard.
Okay, so he was able to identify you as Islamic. You didn't think anything strange about it when the white boy said, "Hey, salam." You just thought he was Muslim as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so I salamed him. So earlier that day, I just left, went back, didn't think nothing of it, went back in the crib, and seen him. Next day, seen him again, but early in the morning.
And where were you when you saw him this time?
I was on North New Street.
North New Street?
Yes.
Okay, what were you doing?
I was just outside, just smoking a cigarette.
So you was outside smoking a cigarette in the morning?
Because the boarding house I am, she doesn't permit smoking in her home. So
okay.
I went outside, and I was approached by the same Caucasians, and they greeted me again and said, "I need to talk to you about my issues and my problems, my baby mom and all that stuff." So
about whose baby mom?
His baby mom.
Okay,
his baby mom, because baby mom was leaving, taking his kids and all that stuff, which is dope. Coming from that was just a lie, But that was just the.
So I want to make sure I get it right. So they see you standing out there, you're smoking a cigarette,
yes.
And they come to talk to you and ask you, "Hey, I got some problems with my baby mamas. I want to talk to you."
Got some problems. He want to know more about Islam and all that stuff, So me not thinking nothing of it, I was like, okay, I speak to you briefly because I gotta go out and look for a job. I gotta prepare myself to do what I need to do. The next thing you know, that's when the drama went down. The gun was flashed out on.
Now that one, the one that you're talking about, was the one on the driver's side. I mean, the passenger side.
That was the one that salamed.
That's the one that salamed you. Who pulled the gun on you?
Him.
Okay, so he got out. Did the other one ever get out the car?
Nah, he never got out of the vehicle whatsoever.
Okay, so he was saying he want to talk about his stuff.
Yes.
Then all of a sudden, what happened when he pulled out the gun? What happened?
The gun got pulled.
Where did he point it at you?
To my head.
Okay, so then what'd you do?
I need, man, I was great just say, yo, you gonna have to kill me right here. Mm-hmm. But hey.
He had a gun on you in your head.
Right.
Then what happened? Were you in the front or back?
I was in the back with him the whole time.
Okay, so he had back there. Did he have a gun on you or how was it?
Yeah, he had the gun on me the whole time.
Where?
Like in my head, he had hit me with pistol and everything go boom, and you know, told me shut up and all that. So I was like, Dad, I thought you was practicing Islam. He's like, man, F all that stuff, and man, that was just to get you inside. I mean, get you inside the vehicle, and I'm gonna kill you today. So you know, that's how they got me in the vehicle right there.
Okay, so he told you in the vehicle, we gonna kill you today.
Yes.
All right, now what's your name, sir?
My name is Douglas W. Beatty, and I live in Magnolia, Delaware.
Okay, Magnolia, Delaware. How far is that from Moldova?
About 8 miles from where we stand right now.
Okay. You are aware of this situation with Brother Henry?
The person who made me aware of this, initially what the candidates were told was there had been a death in the community, and people in the community felt like leaders weren't doing enough about it. That's real, and I actually saw one of the original leaflets in the business downtown when I was canvassing the streets.
Oh, so you saw one?
Yeah.
Do you have a copy of the original or no?
I have a copy of the original.
But not the original? You don't have an original? Okay.
No, I didn't whip out my cell phone and start taking pictures. I didn't feel like that would be good for my own safety.
Got you, okay.
I interviewed 4 people in the neighborhood that confirmed the existence of 2 white males with a white pickup truck that disappeared on or about Friday, September 17th, which was the date the second man was supposed to have been abducted.
Okay.
And I've spoken to his godmother, and I've spoken to him. I believe that something did happen to this man. And I have an affidavit signed by a paralegal saying that the Attorney General's office wouldn't take his complaint. That's Mr. Alston you've spoken to.
So they took you about 3 or 4 minutes from where you were?
Yes.
Because most people are not from Dover, Delaware. You live in Dover, Delaware?
Yes.
Brother from Delaware, he lives here. They took him 4 minutes from the street corner where they found him to a little park. What's the name of this park, do you know?
It's called Silver Lake.
Silver Lake? Silver Lake Park in Dover, Delaware, where they brought the brother to lynch him.
And I showed up at this candidates forum and was kind of hit in the face with this. That there was a leafleting program back in December, was what I was told, that a man was lynched at Silver Lake, and then another man may have been abducted and assaulted by the same people.
Okay.
So I spent a little bit of time investigating this myself.
Do you remember where they parked?
They parked right here.
So they pulled up to the corner right here.
Right here. Right here. Corner, park.
They parked the truck right here. Facing this way?
Facing this way right here.
Okay. And then what time of day was it?
Like 6 o'clock, 5:30 in the morning.
So 5:30 in the morning, so it was still dark? Or light?
It was kind of light.
It was kind of light?
It was getting there.
It was getting there, nobody was here?
Nobody was here.
No cars? Okay, so they pulled the truck up there, pull up, then what happened?
Then it all went down, the fight began. Fight for my life.
So they bring you to this stop right here in the pickup truck. Tell us what happened after that.
The struggle began, you know. We start fighting, we start hooking, you know, and everything else.
So help me out. You say so it was 2 of them, one in the front, one in the back. How did they get you out of the truck?
How they get me out of the truck, you know, at gunpoint.
Okay.
They got me out at gunpoint.
Okay.
And from then, that's when I grabbed one of them. Come to find out, you know, that the gun ain't had no ammunition.
So how'd you find that out?
How I know, because he was like, I'm going to shoot this motherfucker.
Oh, so he was pulling the trigger?
Yeah, he was pulling the trigger and
so you never got a hold of the gun?
Nah, I never got a hold of the gun.
But he was shooting and you realized there wasn't no bullets in it?
There wasn't no bullets. He played me. He was letting me know he played me.
Oh, so he wanted you to know that?
Yeah, he wanted me to know.
Okay, so wait a minute. So they drag you out the vehicle. So then what? Yeah, you start realizing now I'm gonna fight now because they about to kill me.
Right. I'm gonna fight for my life. I already know what time it is now. I'm great. We great to get it in because I already know you trying to kill me now.
Okay.
You know, it's no robbery. It's you straight up trying to kill me.
Right.
So.
So what'd you do?
So soon as we park right there. After that.
Inside or outside when you start fighting first?
I started fighting as soon as we got out here because I already knew what time it was.
Once they pulled you out the car?
Yeah, once they pulled me out the car, that was my chance right there.
Okay.
You know? So we started fighting and everything like that.
So you swung on one of them?
Yeah, I swung on one of them. And swung on one of them, I dropped him. He got back up. And the other one started attacking me with this knife. He started stabbing me all in my face and all that stuff, right?
So show us where he stabbed.
He stabbed me right here, you know. He stabbed me right here. It's kind of healed up. He stabbed me right here.
Okay.
It went all the way through. Stabbed me with like a shank pointy thing. You know, stabbed me right there.
And you said it went all the way through?
Yeah, it went all the way through. Then he stabbed me somewhere. He stabbed me. I think. Damn.
You can't. You just knew you was getting stabbed. You
Yeah,
had time to sit down and figure out every place he stabbed you. Okay.
Right.
So he stabbed you. You dropped the other one. He get back up. And what's going on now? Y'all
Now,
fight.
we still tussling.
Okay.
So one of them just grabbed me by my neck, started bringing me towards this area right here. The other one grabbed my foot. You know, the other one grabbed my 2 feet, took me down to this area right here, and one of them still had me in the headlock. He dropped back on me, you know, and had his feet on me like I don't know what type of position it is, but he had me like
you couldn't move.
I couldn't move whatsoever. So the other white boy, he kept on going to the van, grabbing stuff to try to knock me out with, you know. So he grabbed the burner again, hit me up top of my head with the burner again, and he steady hit me up top of my head. Homeboy got me in a damn headlock. Then he took my belt off. Wrapped it around my neck.
So he took your belt off. Your belt.
After he couldn't knock me out, he took my belt off.
Okay.
And wrapped it around my neck.
Okay.
And start
choking.
Choking me with that joint. Start tugging on the joint just.
And when the other one was still holding you?
Yes, while the other one was still holding.
Okay.
You know, so well, I'm just kind of upset about the whole situation.
Take your time, yes sir.
Bring it back. So the belt was too small. The belt was too small to do what they really wanted to do with it.
Okay.
You know, so he went back to the truck and tried to find something else. Try to find something else to hang me with. Then he was like, since we can't hang him, let's drown this motherfucker. We gonna drown this motherfucker. So they try to attempt to roll me to the lake. Mm-hmm. By the time then I'm like f***ed up, like, excuse my language, like I'm kind of like messed up. So they try to roll me down to the lake, get all the way down here. And they dragged me down the hill. John went back to the truck to try to find something else or whatever like that. Then he ran back down, tried to throw me in this lake right here.
So help me out. When John was going up there, what was the other guy doing?
He still like had me pinned.
How?
You know, like in the chokehold position, but he had his legs wrapped all the way around.
So he was on the bottom.
Yeah,
he was on top.
On the bottom. I was on the top.
He got his legs around you and the chokehold.
Yeah, in the chokehold.
So you can't get out.
I can't move. I can't do nothing.
Okay.
So I started yelling for yelling for help or whatever like that, you know. Started yelling for help, you know, because when nobody out here, I ain't think nobody heard me or whatever like that. So I'm yelling for help, and nothing came. But I was just like, I got to get, I said, I know God ain't just bring me this far to let me go out like this, you know. So John ran back to the truck to get something. I don't know what he ran back to this truck for, but this is when I bit Mike. That's his name. I bit Mike.
So Mike was the one that was holding you up.
Yeah,
okay.
The big white boy.
Now, do you know the names of the 2 white males who supposedly, allegedly tried to lynch Brother Austin?
Been reported as Mike and John. I don't have confirmation on that, but I had that from more than one source.
Okay, do you have the last names?
One of the last names possibly, but I don't want to say it on film until I know more because it's a common last name.
When I bit him, you know, I bit him hard.
Do you know where you bit him?
On his arm.
Okay.
I don't know which arm.
But you bit one arm.
I bit him. I bit him so hard that I almost bit a chunk up out of him. I wish I did. You feel me? But he let me go. So when he let me go, cause he was screaming like a little. He was screaming. He was like screaming when I bit him, and white boy John came running over here. So I got enough time to break loose. And that's when I ran all the way over there, jumped that fence over there. Hold on, I ran through the graveyard, jumped the fence, and ended up in that lady backyard.
We're here with our brother Henry Fordham, who actually successfully escaped the lynching. We came from the area on the lake where he came across into this graveyard here, ran across the graveyard, leaped this fence right here, and ended up in this female's backyard. White female, black?
Yes, white female.
White female, older, younger?
I don't have no idea. I just seen her on her balcony.
So she was on the balcony. She had called the police, and she was waiting for the police to come, and it took them 25 minutes to half an hour to get here. Now, tell us what happened once the police, you were here in her backyard, the police come. Tell us what happened when the police come.
When the police, when the Dover police had came inside that lady backyard, they just straight up made mockery of me. They laughed at me. They smiled at me. It was nothing but white officers. They said they started searching my pockets, going inside my private parts and everything else.
Wait a minute, how many officers was it?
It was probably like roughly like, it had to been like 10 of them surrounding me. It was a lot of them.
So they had a bunch of white officers surrounding you?
Yes.
And did you tell them, how did it start? How did you say, let me tell you what happened, or what happened?
I just know I had from doing all that running, because that vehicle was on my ass. So from doing all that running, jumping this fence right here, passing out in this lady's yard, and briefly, and she said everything gonna be all right. I just called the police and all that stuff and all that, But she called the police when she heard the help.
Heard you screaming for help.
Heard me screaming for help.
So when you came conscious and the police came, tell us exactly what happened. They came. Did you start talking or they start talking first?
They start talking, flashing lights in my face. Start searching my pockets. One of them went inside my pants and all that stuff.
And what you mean when you say went inside your pants? What do you mean?
He like shook me down, like shook me down and stuff like that. Started patting my pockets, started shaking me down and all that stuff. And I said, yo, why are you shaking me down? I said, two Caucasian men were just trying to lynch me out there. They were trying to kill me out there. He said, nah, you was doing something else. I said, yo, you see the marks on me? I said,
so you were bleeding?
I said, yeah. I said, did I do this myself?
So were you bleeding?
Yeah, I was bleeding. I was bleeding bad out there. I was bleeding bad in that lady backyard. I was bleeding bad, and they were just making mockery of the whole situation.
Police are not talking to anybody about this, and no one in an official capacity is.
And people know the home where they were living before this situation happened?
Yes. In fact, I spoke to a newspaper reporter who told me off the record he was aware of Mr. Clark's demise and the fact that his family didn't think it was a suicide, but it was officially going out as a suicide. And the reason I was given for there being no press release from the Dover Police Department was that they normally don't do that on suicides, but that depends on the case. There was another one in October where there was a media release.
In these few examples, we have seen biblical prophecies in full effect. It was spoken that those that hate us would rule over us, and that they would kill us and find themselves not guilty. Time after time, we see incidents of police brutality and murder of black citizens, young and old, male and female. Our elderly are victims, our children are victims, and yet we are expected to respect and obey the authority of our oppressors. This is not something that is now starting to happen, but has been the actual narrative of what has happened to us since we were forcibly brought here as slaves to the United States of America. It goes back to biblical prophecy of how we would be treated in the land of our enemies because of our disobedience to the Most High. This is due to our sins and the sins of our ancient ancestors. Now, the first examples are more recent and clearly very violent, but for some of our young people, they are intentionally kept from the knowledge that these things have been happening for a very long time. Here are some examples of incidents of days gone by from the Civil Rights era and even before then.
Off into the water about 10 yards maybe, and that's when all of them would come in by the time we got in there. I guess the clans and the state troops and everybody, they would line the troopers up down there, but they would then divide out and allow these guys to come in on us down there. So they would just zero in on all of the demonstrators and beat us back up to there. We finally would get back on our bus and go back to the church. Some of us would come up on the piers and kind of watch. And then you had to try to wander your way back down through these piers because you had all this hostility and all these white boys standing around, Ku Klux Klans with bats bricks, bottles, anything they could put their hands on. They really didn't have any mercy on us, but we would continue to come back every day. We never stopped coming back. We took the beating, we go back to the church, we pray about it, we sing, and I think our inspiration came through songs, and it still do. You know you got to take these beatings and take these whippings and go on. So it was kind of difficult sometimes, and it puts all kind of ideas in your mind. So, well, you know, we could easily gotten killed out here, and we had a lot of folks that got hurt up during this movement that survived it, and we're just grateful and thankful that it did all come out to be a very positive thing. It's, I said that it was the most instrumental piece, I think, of passing the civil rights bill. I think it all happened right here in St. Augustine, on these beaches and on those marches at the slave market, passed the 1964 Civil Rights Act.
By far, the bloodiest battleground of the civil rights era was Birmingham. In the early 1960s, the town was a racial powder keg waiting to explode.
Birmingham was then the most segregated city in America, and it had the longest history of aggressive racial violence. Birmingham was called Bombingham by people in the civil rights movement because of this long chain of unsolved bombings of black homes.
Much of the violence was perpetrated by the Ku Klux Klan. As evidenced in the beating of the Freedom Riders, the city's law enforcement was known for its working relationship with the Klan.
The Klan had more influence perhaps in Birmingham than they did in a lot of the other southern cities, and I think that contributed to the Klan's sense of bravado, where they felt like they could get away with anything, that nobody'd hold them accountable.
In this charged atmosphere, one of the cruelest of all acts of Klan terror occurred. The 16th Street Baptist Church was a symbol of the civil rights movement in Birmingham. The sacred chambers served as a staging point for demonstrations against segregated downtown public facilities. From the steps of the church, hundreds of black marchers, most of them kids, encountered the extreme force of Police Commissioner Bull Connor's attack dogs and high-pressure fire hoses. For radical segregationists like the Klan, the 16th Street Baptist Church became a special target. On a hazy Sunday morning in September of 1963, 4 young black girls attended Sunday school at the 16th Street Church. The day's Bible lesson was, "A Love That Forgives." The 4 girls moved to the basement to don choir robes when suddenly a noise shot through the church like a cannon. A bomb planted near the basement ripped through the house of worship. Under an avalanche of shattered glass, toppled brick, and tangled metal, a gruesome discovery. Cynthia Wesley, age 14. Carol Robertson, age 14. Addie Mae Collins, age 14. And Denise McNair, age 11. All were found dead, their bodies buried atop one another.
Of all the bad things that happened in the South during the Civil Rights era, to me, that was the worst. Because you had 4 innocent little girls that hadn't done anything to anybody going to worship on Sunday morning in church, and they're killed for absolutely no reason except that they were black.
Within days, police were almost certain the bombers were members of the United Klans of America. The key suspect was Dynamite Bob Chambliss, a Klansman suspected in many Birmingham bombings. After a perfunctory investigation, Chambliss and 2 other Klansmen were convicted only of the minor charge of dynamite possession. That finding was overturned on appeal. An FBI investigation resulted in no arrest, no charges.
Being in Birmingham, different things, like late, like before my great aunt passed, when she was 16, she used to get, she had a brick thrown at her mouth, just from a circle of whiteness. And it's crazy. And I'm looking back at my life, and even when I was a child, like from time to time, I used to be in the YMCA or whatever, and I used to play with my brothers or whatever, and then I would play with some of the white kids, regardless of whether I was playing ball like kickball or something like that. It seemed like whether I was playing or whether I was standing by, I was always getting hit by something. And it would always be that one white kid.
From deep within the dunes of Africa's Namib Desert, a terrible secret is beginning to emerge. These are the remains of victims of the world's first death camp. A place where thousands of Africans were exterminated by the German army 30 years before the Nazis came to power. These remains have lain here forgotten for over 100 years, but this terrible place is not unique. Scattered across the world are the sites of the massacres and genocides of imperialism, where millions died in an aspect of colonial history that Europe often chooses to forget. These people were victims of the truth that lies behind the myth of the white man's burden. Throughout the 19th century, European scientists, writers, and philosophers developed ideas to justify the mass killings of the Age of Empire. These same theories went on to inspire some of the horrors and the savagery that would consume Europe in the 20th century.
Now, after seeing all of this, it is very clear that we are being ruled over by a class of people that hate us, and it's not just here in the US, but worldwide. Our people have been slaughtered and killed worldwide as a result of biblical prophecies. Even Yahushua, the one who the world calls Jesus, said in Luke 23 and 28 to the daughters of Jerusalem, "Weep not for me, but for yourselves and for your children." He was referencing the fact that the tribe of Judah would be going into captivity or slavery into all nations. Luke 21 and 24. And they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led captive into all nations, and Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles, until the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled. Baruch chapter 4 verse 6. Ye were sold to the nations not for your destruction, but because you moved Yah to wrath. You were delivered unto your enemies.
If I were to tell some of you that we as so-called black people have been experimented on medically, many of you wouldn't even believe it. You say, well, that's something that happened in the past, and I just don't believe they're doing that now. Well, there is clear evidence that these things continue to happen. This is not just something that happened in the pages of history. The same people who experimented on us medically back then are still doing the same kind of thing today. As a matter of fact, we are even targeted for certain diseases, and they do it through our food, our water supply, through all kinds of channels, all kinds of things. But see, we don't want to believe these things because it's just too uncomfortable. We don't want to wrap our minds around these facts. But when you look at these studies closely, some of these diseases are meant to lower our birth rates, to commit a chemical genocide on us, and to deplete our numbers drastically. We better start getting a grip and paying attention to what's going on, because these people are trying to take us out.
Right? And then our ancestors were worked to death. To death. Recently, they unearthed a slave cemetery. They unearthed actually a slave cemetery in New York City. It's on Wall Street, by the way, in the shadow of the bull. Unearthed a slave cemetery, and they still to this day they're struggling. They recently, have done a lot in terms of commemoration. I went to it took me everything to get to it. They had it blocked off so you couldn't get to it, but because they didn't want to deal with it. You can't just bulldoze a cemetery. So here in all these skyscrapers in the middle of it is this little cemetery, and there's slaves in that cemetery. More important than that was what the bones told us, because now you got CSI. Hell, I can go in there and tell you what's going on now. So with the CSI thing, now they've discovered a little bit about the bones. And to me, the most phenomenal thing about the bones is what they told us about those people and how they live. Majority of the people in there were children, infants and children, high mortality, infant mortality rate. They even know what they died of. Died of malnutrition and starvation, because they could tell by the rotting of the teeth in the jawline. So even though they most likely grew food, they weren't allowed to eat it. And then they found something even more peculiar that speaks to this idea of why he believed we required less sleep. They would show a large frame man, and they would find an injury where the muscle actually detached itself from the bone as a result of exertion and not injury. Stay with me. It detaches itself from the bone as a result of exertion. That means you work so hard, the muscle detached itself from the bone. You don't see those kind of injuries in contemporary society because no one's going to work that hard. Unless, of course, you have a gun trained on you from sunrise to sunset. So we do have empirical evidence of how hard folks work.
Get up, Toby! Damn it, boy! If you don't understand my meaning, I got a dictionary in the butt end of this whip that'll make my meaning clear.
And he went on to say that we were dumb, cowardly, and incapable of feeling grief. Why would Thomas Jefferson need to believe that? Why would he need to believe we didn't feel grief? What was he doing, do you think, that produced cognitive dissonance? You were killing people. Not only were you killing people, beating them, you were selling them, yes? Selling mothers away from their children and husbands away from wives. And surely they don't feel it, because if they felt it, that would make them human like me. So I simply say, and you see, it's not even so much that he said it, but he was an important person. If Joe, nobody said it, but he said it. So what do you think the rest of the folks, uneducated laborers, believed? Well, they don't feel grief, you know. After all, Thomas Jefferson says they don't. So he becomes a critical person in making those statements. But you see, it was all to relieve and to settle the conscience that he died with. But these become very important as you see how these things move forward. Then there was J. Marion Sims. I won't spend a lot of time with him. He's another figure. You can Google him. There's a statue actually of him in Central Park. And J. Marion Sims was an individual credited. He was a father of modern gynecology. How many women in here know what a vaginal speculum is? And for those men in the room that we lost, a vaginal speculum is a device designed to open up the vagina. It was considered one of the most important advancements in medicine that was made. He was credited as being the wealthiest wealthiest physician to have ever lived. And what's interesting about him, look at the medals pinned on him. I was just very curious about how it was they regarded this man, because no one ever really looked at how did he come up with that vaginal speculum. The way he did it was he actually worked on unanesthetized, did experiments on unanesthetized slave women. He created a makeshift hospital in his backyard in the mid-1800s. He built the first vaginal speculum from a pewter spoon. And he reasoned that slave women were able to bear great pain, meaning we don't need any anesthesia, because their race made them more durable, and thus they were well suited for painful medical experimentation. We didn't even, because we didn't feel like other women could feel. This man would cut into women, cut into them, and just said, well, since they're black, they don't really feel it. Unbelievable. And more importantly is what he did to infants, because not only did he experiment on women, he also experimented on infants. He said that black infants suffered from something he called trimus nascentium, which is now commonly referred to as neonatal tetanus. Neonatal tetanus originates in horse manure, which was a likely cause of the disease in slave infants. He attributed it to the indecency and intellectual flaws of slave infants, together with skull malformations at birth. That is a shoemaker's awl. And that's the 1800s shoemaker's awl. He would stick that into the heads of brand new infants in an effort to realign their skulls based on the indecency and intellectual flaws of their parents, to treat the malady. Of course, it was 100% death rate. But that's what he would stick in the head of a baby at birth. And so these are things that are so horrific that you can't possibly wrap your head around it. And this man is, just Google it. And you think to myself, I think to myself, if I were up here in front of you right now, and this is going to become very important as I move into the other slides. If I stomped a puppy to death up here, just a little puppy, and stomped it right here to death in front of you, most of you would need therapy. And I would be arrested probably faster than killing a black man for killing a puppy. How could you do that? Do you realize how much dissonance you have to remove in order to stick that into the brain of a child? More importantly, the child can no longer be human. Are you understanding what I'm saying? The reason why he could do it is they weren't human. They didn't even feel pain. That's what this man believed. Now, you may look at that and go, those are horrific things from the past. There's a book out right now, not table reading. It's called Medical Apartheid. This is written by Harriet Washington, came out last year. This book chronicles the experimentation on black people up to contemporary day. See, we want to look at the Tuskegee experiments. We want to look at Sims and go, oh, that just still going on. Implicated, Harvard, Johns Hopkins, because we weren't what? Human.
This is from the New York Times. These are maps of diabetes. The top map is New York City. Everybody's drinking the same drinking water. The darkest areas on the top is Harlem, where the African Americans predominate in the community. And then the Bronx, and is it Queens? I don't know New York City very well. But two other areas where minorities and poor live. Why do they have much higher rates of diabetes than the rest of the affluent part of New York City? The answer is that we discovered after Chernobyl that the state milk boards are taking the most contaminated radioactive milk from dairies near nuclear power plants, and they're shipping that into black inner city communities where it's sold in the mom and pop stores. Look at Africa in the bottom map. It has the lowest diabetes in the world. So how can diabetes be genetic in blacks if they didn't have it in Africa? It's because U.S. national policy is to genocide the black communities with radiation.
I was diagnosed in 2009. What was sort of upsetting about my cancer was that I was a person that kept all my doctor's appointments and did all of the tests that I was supposed to take. And when I was having my irregular cycles, I was told that I had fibroids. But because my mom had fibroids and my two older sisters had fibroids and they'd gone through something similar, and their symptoms were much worse than mine, I didn't think that it was it. And I think it was cancer. But to be on the safe side, I asked my doctor to take the test so we could make sure it wasn't something that I had to worry about. And they did a bevy of tests and they said, no, everything is fine. And so I went for years having these irregular cycles and profuse bleeding and all of that. And 10 years later, I started having extreme pain and went to an emergency one time, and they gave me a lab test, and they gave me this test called a CA-125. And it did upset me when they called, and you know, your regular number should be 35 or anything under, and I was at 240. At that time, I cried. I called my sister, and I asked her to do some research for me. She had a medical background. She was really good at that. And so she called me back and gave me some information and prayed with me. And that was the first time I cried about that, and pretty much just maybe one of 3 times. And I got through that and went away. I was clear until 2014. And we're back. I had 6 tumors. Before I had tumors everywhere. One by the chest cavity near the heart, one by near the liver, 2 near the kidney, the omentum. That's the stomach lining. Part of the intestine, had to remove a complete hysterectomy. This time I had 6 tumors. One was the size of a small orange in my pelvis. They put me through chemotherapy again, and I'm now down to 2. The one that was the size of an orange is down to a walnut, and the other one is minuscule. saying all of that, I think that it's definitely a curse that we're under here. And I blame it on the contamination of our air, our food, and our water. I'm not a junk food eater. I never have been. We weren't raised on junk food. So I feel that it is the GMOs that they're putting in our food and not talking about. It's the pesticides that they spray everything with. It's all of the preservatives that they put in everything. And I think if I wasn't here in this country, then I wouldn't be susceptible to these foods, these contaminants, these chemicals. The laws that protect the companies that are killing us. You know, so all that being said, that didn't get me down because one scripture, and it's by his stripes I am healed. I said that scripture, and I've been saying that scripture since 2009, and I believe it. And I know it's true. It's not manifested yet in my life, but it will be. So I have faith in that. And I'll see you next time when I can tell you that when the x-rays came back with 0 tumors.
Then Yahuwah will make thy plagues wonderful, and the plagues of thy seed, even great plagues, and of long continuance, and sore sickness, and of long continuance.
Black Americans had the highest death rate and the shortest survival time for most cancers of any racial or ethnic group in the nation as of 2005. Also, diseases like kidney stones, tuberculosis, polio, parasitic diseases, bilharzia, guinea worm, roundworm, tapeworm were found among the mummies of Egypt. Were also found in Black Americans today, just like the scripture says.
Moreover, he will bring upon thee all the diseases of Egypt, which thou wast afraid of, and they shall cleave unto thee. Also every sickness and every plague, which is not written in the book of this law, them will Yahuwah bring upon thee until thou be destroyed. Yahuwah will smite thee with the botch of Egypt, and with the emerods, and with the scab, and with the itch, whereof thou canst not be healed.
Blacks account for 13% of the United States population, and about half, that's 49% of the people who get HIV and AIDS. HIV and AIDS is actually targeted against our people.
In 20 years, AIDS has become the worst medical catastrophe ever experienced by humankind.
I had a source in California, an AIDS treatment activist, who sent me a packet of clips one day saying, this is a bombshell story waiting for an investigative reporter. What I had been sent was a couple of documents saying, well, it's all very well and good to talk about these bizarre tribal rituals or other possible explanations of the cause of AIDS, but it is a fact that the virus, the monkey virus SV40, was transmitted to millions of people across the world.
Tom Curtis speculated that if during the 50s polio vaccines were contaminated with the monkey virus SV40, something similar could have happened with AIDS. SIV, the ancestor of the AIDS virus, is also a monkey virus. And Curtis connected this fact to a mass polio vaccination campaign in the Congo.
Heart disease is the leading cause of death for Black Americans, averaging nearly 1 million deaths per year. 3.7 million, that's 14% of all Black Americans aged 20 years or older have diabetes. 43% of Black women and 39% of Black men suffer from hypertension. That's high blood pressure.
The reason why the so-called black people
are the sickest people in the countries, because the so-called black people, which are indeed the Israelites according to the scriptures, have transgressed the laws, the statutes, the commandments of the Most High Yah, and in return he promised to punish us for worshiping gods of wood and of stone. And that's why when you look at Deuteronomy chapter 28, Leviticus 26, and Isaiah chapter 3, you see these curses being evident on the men and the women of the Most High Yah. And the cure for that curse is just for us to repent and follow his ways, his statutes and commandments, and he will turn those things from us.
I'm sitting here thinking about my father. I will start with him, who passed from cancer. And because I'm a health coach, I'm in the health totally, okay, and my message comes from the Word and reading, you know, the diet and the law, okay, that I try to relate to people, and of course, you know what response I get from them, but as I look at them and dealing with different sicknesses, it still all comes to the same thing. You know, a lot of our sicknesses come from the curses. You know, in Deuteronomy 28, it explains when you do such and such a thing, you're going to get this sickness and that sickness. You know, bitterness could cause bone cancer when you have it against someone, okay? And so I think about that. My father died from cancer, and if I knew what I knew now, he'd probably, hopefully still be living at 90-some years old. But anyway, he was involved in the occult, and the occult was the masonry. It was the 8th degree, masonry 8.5 or whatever they call it. And because they used to meet, this group met out in Belleville, Michigan. Okay, my mother was in the Eastern Star, and then my whole family got saved like boom, boom, boom. You know, 5 brothers, 2 sisters, and 3, whom myself, my mother and father, a couple other people in our family. We was on fire. You know, we were filled with the Ruach. You know, I mean, we was totally on fire. So we seen so many things, and we studied together, you know, at our house, you know, all the time. I mean, every day. Anyway, with him being involved in that, one of the curses is when God's people, or any people actually are involved in the occult, they will eventually get cancer. Okay, even a person that's healthy, never been sick before, and they get it and they wonder where did they get it from. It's not just from the food. Yes, you can get cancer from the food, but it's also mainly caused, there's a spiritual root to it, you know, by being involved in the occult, which could include witchcraft too. And you all know a lot of our people throughout times in different areas, you know, were involved in witchcraft.
Yes.
You know, which is the occult.
Now, there were some specific laws that were given to the children of Israel regarding what we eat, who we marry, what we're to do, observing the Shabbat or the Sabbath. And many of us have been told or taught that none of this stuff matters anymore. Not nowhere in the Most High's word did he say none of this matters anymore. But what you have are men who have established their own righteousness and their own traditions, and they've said that it doesn't matter. And what they're doing too is they are passing off their doctrines as the doctrines of the Most High and causing people to err.
Isaiah chapter 9, verse 16. For the leaders of this people cause them to err, and they that are led of them are destroyed.
A good example are the things that we are commanded not to eat. We have been taught through the mistranslations of Scripture and the false teachings of Christianity that you can bless and eat whatever you want. Now, if I were to say to some of you that we're going to barbecue some elephant meat today, and we're going to have a side of fried rats and some boiled cat and dog, many of you would look at me as if I'm gross, you see. But pig, on the other hand, you have so-called black people having pig roast. Now, the scripture said that that's an unclean, defiled animal. But your pastor told you that if you bless it, you can eat it. Why then are people getting brain worms, high blood pressure, and all kinds of diseases from eating food that the Most High told us not to eat? We cannot go ahead and establish our own laws and our own righteousness and misinterpret Scripture and disregard clear instructions that the Most High have given us.
He even said that in that day, anyone who's found eating mice or swine is going to be judged. So take that into consideration the next time you try to bless some pork. Why then are your loved ones dying from strokes and high blood pressure and all these other diseases? We are to eat clean and we are to eat right. When the Most High says something, His word goes forth out of His mouth, and it shall not return void. When He said that we are to bless the food that we eat, He was speaking of things that were already determined to be food. He wasn't talking about rats or elephants or pigs or catfish or shrimp. Those things are unclean. They were unclean in the Old Testament and they're unclean today.
For behold, Yahuwah will come with fire, and with his chariots like a whirlwind, to render his anger with fury, and his rebuke with flames of fire. For by fire and by his sword will Yahuwah plead with all flesh, and the slain of Yahuwah shall be many. They that sanctify themselves and purify themselves in the gardens behind one tree in the midst, eating swine's flesh, and the abomination and the mouse shall be consumed together, saith Yahuwah.
Yahuwah shall make the pestilence cleave unto thee, until he have consumed thee from off the land, whither thou goest to possess it. Yahuwah shall smite thee with a consumption, and with a fever, and with an inflammation, and with an extreme burning, and with the sword, and with blasting, and with mildew, and they shall pursue thee until thou perish.
It is common in most black neighborhoods to find rats, mice, fleas, flies, and roaches. I've seen people put their trash cans on a table in the backyard just to keep the rats from getting into the garbage cans. Roach infestations is a common thing in black communities. Just like the scripture says, the pestilence shall cleave unto them. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of Yahuwah thy Elohim, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. Cursed shalt thou be in the city, and cursed shalt thou be in the field. Cursed shall be thy basket and thy store. Cursed shall be the fruit of thy body, and the fruit of thy land, and the increase of thy kind, and the flocks of thy sheep. Cursed shalt thou be when thou comest in, and cursed shalt thou be when thou goest out. Yahuwah shall send upon thee cursing, vexation, and rebuke, in all that thou settest thine hand unto for to do, until thou be destroyed, and until thou perish quickly, because of the wickedness of thy doings, whereby thou hast forsaken me. I knew there was something going on when I went through certain black neighborhoods and noticed the same problems and the same patterns of dysfunction. From family to family, city to city, state to state, I see some of the same issues. And these issues are now a normal way of life for most of us. The legacy we leave for our offspring are a pile of problems ranging from poverty to sickness. Now, some of us as individuals have risen above some of these issues, but as a whole, these things have gotten worse over the years. The scriptures say, "Curse shall be the fruit of thy body." Well, isn't this what we're seeing in our communities today? Each generation, the youth gets worse and worse. There was a time when black children respected their elders. Now they don't even respect their own parents.
16-year-old Jalen Wembley is charged as an adult in jail for murder after police say she stabbed her mother, Katina Wembley, with a knife. It happened here at Sunrise Apartments Tuesday afternoon.
Kids could hear him through the door arguing about the cell phone, and I just heard the mama squeal real loud.
What happened next will be hard for Melody Thames to ever forget.
The little girl came out and slammed the door, and when she went back, she said, "I hate you, you stupid B-I-T-C-H." And she ran and took off. Then the mama come out with the knife. It was all the way in her neck to the handle, and she was screaming for help. She was just walking around. She was bleeding everywhere. She was just saying, "Help me." So we set her down, and she said, "I can't breathe, I can't breathe." So by then, my sister had called 911, but they was taking too long to get here, so we just loaded up in my car and took her to the ER.
Katina Wembley died at the hospital. Authorities say Jalen Wembley took off running from the apartment barefoot. She was caught 5.5 hours later, coming out of the woods about a half a mile away from the murder scene.
Shoved off to school as a distraction to the birthers most times. It's with gladness and glee that the mom, or maybe the dad, kicks them out the door. Good riddance to you till you decide to come back home, because you know I ain't got no curfew for you. Just as long as you keep the law away from my door. If they come here, I'll just tell them you're a troubled child who always disappears and runs away from home. I need my time to myself, some may say, while others want to hit the streets to maximize their day. And don't let them have a day off. It's usually accompanied by, "Shucks, I was hoping to do something else today, but now I have to deal with you." What a way to show love to the ones that snuggled in your womb for 9 months. Why do you treat the former inhabitants of your womb like discarded garbage? Don't you realize the fact that they know this and will grow with this? This isn't the way it was supposed to be. They will lose their dignity if you don't show some humility and love at some point in their young lives. It's too late when they are old enough and bold enough to get you told. Molding comes from the moment of conception. Too bad their conception was surrounded by lustful turmoil, with no thoughts of love attached to the act of their very being. Off to school we go, and what we will learn, no one shall know. Why? Because we've already been counted out. So without a doubt, we will not learn what life is all about. Not from that place we call school anyway. What we learn is usually spun out by the gov to try to mastermind our demise. Parents don't usually check to see what, if anything, we know, because they only want us gone so they can find themselves on the internet or some reality fictional television show. Yeah, our opinion of you, Mom, maybe Dad, is just like the one that you have of us. Not much. You see, it's mutual. But should it be this way? I don't think so. I can imagine us like the folks on the prairie days, holding hands while praying over our hand-slaughtered meal, happily singing songs while Dad plays the old banjo in the background. Little ones dancing around with our feet to the ground while Mom gathers dishes with her handmade apron on. Throughout this day, I will pass people in the halls or on the streets, depending on whether or not I've dropped out of school. These people, as I pass them, they see me as nothing. Some may even fear me because of my nomenclature. Being black, colored, African American, or some other indigenous people could sometimes get you into so much flack from those who apprehended this land from us anyway. Will the real savage thieves please stand up? In history class, you told us that the natives were savages, that the Africans were savages. But the truth has come out, and they were only defending themselves, as would a pack of rats would defend themselves from some sneaky cat who brought them a slice of cheese to lure them, but then, bam, gotcha. Children not protected, but neglected and rejected. Their lives are not accepted nor reflected, but objected. Running all the time without a dime, doing crime. Singing like a chime, trying to rhyme to speak their mind. Trying to find a place and a space to show their face. Hated for their race, they catch a case with a bitter taste. No one there to love but to shove with a glove. Not looking above for the peaceful dove and the Father's love. Shoved aside, to them we lied, and many have died. No one has tried to bring them inside, so they've simply fallen by the wayside. Every day we hear of how our children are victims and suspects in this ever-changing world. Changing the black for the white, telling them that they ain't right because what they see in their sight is everything that is white. It is that lack of knowledge that causes them to fall by the wayside. Mama was only 15. Automatic death sentence? It doesn't have to be, but usually is for most. Why? Because Mama was only 15 and unlearned. Never knew nothing herself. Why? Because Grandma didn't teach her nothing. Because she was only 15. So we got 3 generations in 30 years. Why is this so wrong on so many levels for most? Didn't used to be. In times before, way back when, Mamahood started early like that. The only difference was Mamas was ready for the world, cooking, rearing, plowing, churning, trading, baking and brewing. Today seems like the only thing Mamas are ready for is screwing, scamming, playing, tricking, tipping, sipping, hating, and baby making. Not knocking baby making, else I wouldn't be here. Just saying that what if Mama was married to Papa before conception? How much difference could that commitment have made in my life? When I look around and I see my peers, most of us are in the same boat. Half siblings and many, many, many uncles that are baby brother's daddy, but not mine. The way I see it, not having hitched parents brings more pain. I hear folks all the time talking like marriage is dead in the water. And not necessary for rearing children, but I beg to differ. Because although marriage isn't necessary to make a baby, it's necessary for raising one proper. The way I see it. The further folks get away from how the Almighty intended things, the worse the picture becomes. It's getting uglier and uglier. Baby mamas and daddies with half siblings spread across the globe. Well, I ain't gonna go that deep. I at least say across the country or across the city, depending on what your life is like. But how much deeper in this mess are we going to get before we realize that the bottom is about to fall out? And I know y'all might not like this much because I'm young. But I'm gonna tell you how to use the booty right. You see, everywhere I look around, I see females using their booties wrong. From the time they knew what it was, they've sought to accentuate it and flaunt it around. Mama didn't tell them that this kind of behavior draws the wrong attention. It makes for bad company, or maybe a one-night stand. You see, the man that sees this accentuated piece of flesh can't see beyond his pool to even care if there's a brain upstairs in that towering lump of clay. Is this the type of attention you want? If so, why? Why is this sufficient to you? I know why. Because Mama was up to her little tricks again. Shove them to the side and let them raise themselves. I got better things to do, like find me a man. Even Mama Bear treats her babies better than that. One thing the absent-minded mom taught was how to accentuate the booty. She learned it from watching you. And please don't feed me that jive about strutting your stuff and being proud of what you have. This ain't never worked for women for almost a half a century. Matter of fact, it's blown up in their faces. Now brothers just hit it and quit it because they don't want to stick with it. And hey, you let them. Why? Because you somehow thought that that booty would make them stay. You forgot one thing though, Mama. Brenda also got a big old butt. Now I know I'm young and all, but now let me show you how to teach your youngsters how to use the booty right. You see, it's as simple as this. Go sit it down somewhere, pick up a book, and read some sense into your head. After you do that, teach your youngers how to do the same. If the buck is passed along to the next generation, just think of how far we can go with a new thought pattern. If we don't teach our young girls how to use the booty right, I don't see nothing good coming out of the forest. Daddy was a no-show. It's the same old story being spun around with different players each time. Sometimes it's one of the same players depending on what side of town we talking about. Junebug and Pookie is a common nickname for the multi-baby daddy that several chicks like to call upon. Who in their right minds want to be the next link in a chain of fools? I know you hear the cliches and old sayings telling you about the naive nincompoop who believed a guy when he said she was the only one, but she don't hear from him in 7 whole days. When I was 5 years old, I knew better than that. Why is it that people seem to get dumber and dumber as they get older? Did you somehow lose half your brain when you were rolling around in the sack with Mr. Man number 4? How many more do you have to try before you realize that passing it around ain't no good? Is it possible that you could put it in storage for a season after it's been morally laundered and prepared as a bride for her own man? Did you know that it's just a trick to keep your mind gutterized and feeble? You see, us young people are tired of hearing the sad stories of why Daddy was a no-show because Mama was a real hoe. Hoes are meant to dig around in the garden, growing greens and onions and leeks and tomatoes. You, my dear, are meant to be my moms, attached to my dad by something more than just his genitals. And seeing that my siblings have different dads shows me that you ran up on several Mr. Rights who turned out to be all wrong. How long will you fall for the same old lines, Mom? Most likely the cycle will be repeated by the next generation because nobody sees it as sin to do it again and again with no real commitment. I call us the never-ending cycle of born mentally blind. Don't hate for what's on my mind because I have a right to question the thoughts and the woes of my heart. Many of us are born this way, but now it's no longer a shame, just an endless blame game to gain fame. Songs about baby mamas and baby daddies like we got something to gain or brag about. Will somebody please show me the way out? We are the children by the wayside.
So that the man that is tender among you and very delicate, his eyes shall be evil toward his brother, and toward the wife of his bosom, and toward the remnant of his children which he shall leave, so that he will not give to any of them of the flesh of his children whom he shall eat, because he hath nothing left him in the siege, and in the straitness, wherewith thine enemy shall distress thee in all thy gates.
What is a black-on-black enemy? An enemy with a frown turned upside down. An enemy who's fake when they come around. Someone who you love, but they hate you inside. They confuse your passion for arrogant pride. The black-on-black enemy is sometimes the worst. When searching for your enemy, they are the first. You stumble trying to get the knife out your back. They accuse you of much without one fact. You become their enemy when you speak the truth. They prefer vain babblings without any proof. If you fall to the ground, they won't be very kind. When trouble comes your way, they pretend to be blind. They bait you with a smile and gestures of peace, while plotting and planning with other enemies. Lying, crying, and scheming is what they do. If you want true friends, you will only find a few. Your obvious enemies are easy to spot. The one who calls your phone is the one with the plot. Busy trying to dismantle and destabilize each other. More love for our enemy and hate for our brother. Remembering everyone's Holocaust but our own. No memory of our pain of being killed and stoned. So quick to hurt your own while others you embrace. Preferring what is white but hate the chocolate face. Can't stand to see each other rise like crabs in a barrel. Don't want Yah's freedom but love the chains of Pharaoh. Won't spend a dime with your own, but buy masses trash. Won't boycott your oppressors, but your own you will bash. Pathetic and sick we are, and so easily controlled. It's the curse of generational curses, if the truth be told. The only way out is if we cry out and repent. We must turn back to Yah so chastisement can relent. We must lay aside every weight and every single sin. We must deny ourselves and be grafted in again. Being an enemy to your own is an ignorant way to be. Just look at the bigger picture and set your mind free.
Black on black crime? Boy. One day, we had did some spring cleaning, and we had put a lot of trash out on the curb. And I remember when I was pulling in the driveway, the garbage truck was pulling up to collect all of the garbage that we had put out on the curb. I'll never forget, as I was getting out of the car, these black guys were like, "Hey you, hey," whistling all loud, throwing their hand up over at me, waving me to come to them, So I went over there, I'm like, what's going on, And as I was approaching them, they started saying, "You know what we want, you know what we want." So I'm sitting there looking like, okay, no I don't, what are you guys talking about? And they said, "Well, I figure since you live in this nice house and you put all this extra garbage out here on the curb that you would hook us up." And I said, oh, some money? Is it? Yeah. And I just looked at him, I said, dude, and I'm honest, I didn't have no money on me. I was completely broke. And I opened my wallet, I said, man, I don't have any money, man. I said, see, I don't have anything, man. I said, I just don't have it, And the guy just looked at me like, oh man, And I'll never forget, one of the guys had one arm. This dude was looking so crazy at me, and he just started grabbing the bags and was throwing them all in the garbage truck, all mad and crazy, and looking at me at the same time he was doing it. And I remember walking away, and he looking at me just doing this, and they were all looking at me shaking their heads, and I was like, oh man. And I thought to myself, man, why didn't they go and bother my neighbor across the street who are white, or the other white neighbors who always sit a bunch of garbage out on the curb? They never did that to them. But because I was black, they said, oh, we can do this to him because we can get away with it. You see, and I'll never forget when I went in the house how I felt. It was like I couldn't call in on them. Because had I got the phone and called about their actions, then guess what? They know where I stay, right? Blacks are made to believe that if they commit a crime against their own, they'll get away with it. There was an article in the Detroit News about prosecutors and detectives not putting forth any effort to catch wanted murderers. It stated how one person that was wanted for murder was actually found at his home address. Blacks are more likely to end up a victim of a heinous crime in his own neighborhood than a foreigner living in the same neighborhood.
We should speak with some of the blacks in the neighborhood to see what they feel about anti-Semitism.
I mean, like, there we interviewed this guy and he told us if there's gonna be like a Jewish guy and a black guy walking in the street and, you know, somebody wants to rob, they would go for the Jewish guy because like he's an easier target.
Actually, no, he's wrong. They will actually go for the black guy because you go for a Jewish guy, you get more time. Like the lawyers, the judges will actually give us more time if we rob someone of another race.
They're going to classify it as a hate crime.
Blacks rob each other because you get less time.
Yahweh shall cause thee to be smitten before thine enemies. Thou shalt go out one way against them, and flee 7 ways before them, and shalt be removed into all the kingdoms of the earth. And thy carcass shall be meat unto all fowls of the air, and unto the beasts of the earth, and no man shall fray them away.
Isn't this what happened during the time of slavery? We were smitten before our enemies. We fled 7 different ways. They caught us and shipped us as slaves all over the world.
Yahweh shall smite thee with madness, and blindness, and astonishment of heart. And thou shalt grope at noonday, as the blind gropes in darkness. And thou shalt not prosper in thy ways, and thou shalt be only oppressed and spoiled evermore, and no man shall save thee.
I made a decision that we should talk to the public about it. I felt they had a right to know, and that was probably the beginning of the massive media coverage.
Its use has reached epidemic proportions.
Epidemic.
Well, officials call it an epidemic.
You start to hear words like epidemic. You start to hear words like plague, and it fed the public imagination.
At this point, crack is still only in a few neighborhoods of a few big cities.
Most people in America had no idea what crack was. They'd never seen it. But the news media was writing about this plague before the plague, as it were, ever really took hold.
By the summer of '86, crack is the biggest story since Watergate.
You couldn't pick up a newspaper in the mid-'80s where the word crack wasn't on every page. I mean, you'd hit the sports page, it would be Yankees 4, crack 3. Tomorrow, the weather's going to be 80 degrees with a slight chance of crack. You know, it's just crack, crack, crack.
That's what the media does, man. They take something and they run with it for the controversy of it so that they can get the numbers in the ratings. From the beginning, there are plenty of white people smoking crack.
It was really the first time I smoked it that I knew I didn't want to stop.
Everybody I used with was white. You know, they didn't get caught because they had money, more money than me. They weren't in the street yet.
But the media focuses almost exclusively on the black neighborhoods.
Drug dealing has reached epidemic proportions among young black men here.
How old are you? 16, sir.
Our television sets were saturated with images of, black men in handcuffs.
It fed into the worst fears that people had, not just about the drug, but about who the drug was associated with.
The idea of a threat coming from black America relative to crack cocaine was to create a sort of massive hysteria.
It's going nationwide, especially among the young.
If smaller cities don't have a crack crisis now, they will soon.
Now it's spreading across the nation.
Crack has become America's drug of choice.
Perhaps the exclamation point on all of that was the death of Len Bias.
Just 48 hours after becoming the #1 draft choice of the world champion Boston Celtics, Bias collapsed of an apparent heart attack on the University of Maryland campus.
Here he is celebrating, and he dies of a cocaine overdose. No doubt that shook people up.
Leonard Bias was a very healthy individual.
The cocaine killed him, period.
That's correct.
The dramatic warning that, in fact, cocaine kills.
Even the young and the strong can be its victims.
No one actually knew what kind of cocaine he was taking, but because he was an African American, the assumption was that it was crack cocaine.
A specialist in sports medicine speculated what could have occurred.
Somebody substituted crack, a very potent form, and he thought he was getting lower doses than he was given.
Crack, cocaine, whatever had been involved for the media, the facts didn't matter very much.
An autopsy will eventually show that Len Bias ingested cocaine powder, but the public will always think he was killed by crack.
Because it was so geographically close to the Capitol, it kind of had greater reverberations than perhaps it otherwise would have. So I remember members of Congress saying, we got to do something.
Larger numbers of our citizens are suffering and dying from this threat to our national security than any nuclear warfare, any chemical warfare waged on any battlefield.
All of this plays right into President Ronald Reagan's hands. Already 4 years into a mounting war on drugs, he seizes the moment to address the nation.
Today, there's a new epidemic. Smokable cocaine, otherwise known as crack. It is an explosively destructive and often lethal substance which is crushing its users. It is an uncontrolled fire.
With Election Day approaching and polls showing that drug abuse is the public's #1 concern, today's voting became a contest to determine who could be toughest on drug traffickers.
The Republicans in the White House led the way, but Democrats were up there yelling and screaming and pushing for tougher laws.
Tip O'Neill was the Speaker of the House, and he said, you know what, we're going to start punishing crack more than we punish powder. Chemically, they're indistinguishable, but you should be punished a lot more for crack.
There should be no mercy on them.
So he said, I think that the disparity should be 25 to 1. So for every 1 gram of crack, you should get the same punishment as 25 grams of powder. The Republicans said, no, we're the tough on crime people. We think it should be 50 to 1. Tip O'Neill said 75 to 1. Republicans said, no, 100 to 1. That's how drug policy gets made.
We're getting tough on drugs, and we mean business. For those who are thinking of using drugs, we say stop. And to those who are pushing drugs, we say beware.
The Anti-Drug Abuse Act of 1986 mandates a 5-year minimum sentence for a mere 5 grams of crack. It means that first-time nonviolent offenders will be sentenced to decades in prison for selling or possessing small amounts of the drug.
It was really very much about demonization. Every society needs its boogeyman. In the 1980s, it became the crackheads, the drug dealers, and the rhetoric was essentially that anybody involved in this was less than human, was a devil, was somebody who needed to be destroyed.
Thou shalt beget sons and daughters, but thou shalt not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity.
But this people robbed and spoiled. They are all of them snared in holes. They are hid in prison houses. They are for a prey, and none delivereth. For a spoil, and none saith, restore. Isaiah chapter 42, verse 22. How many of our sons and daughters have been sent to prison for minor charges or for crimes they didn't even commit? According to the Huffington Post, there are more black men in prison today than were enslaved in 1850. The 13th Amendment to the United States Constitution states that slavery is abolished unless punishment for a crime. Well, no wonder there are so many blacks in slavery, in prison today. More than it was in 1850.
I'm Megan Murphy for the Huffington Post. More black men are in prison today than were enslaved in 1850. That's the word from Ohio State law professor Michelle Alexander, who's promoting her book, The New Jim Crow, Mass Incarceration in the Age of Color Blindness. News One reports, according to U.S. Bureau of Justice estimates, as of 2008, more than 846,000 black men were in U.S. prisons, constituting 40.2% of all inmates in the system. In an interview with the Washington Journal, Alexander argues the incarceration rate for black men is just a new way to discriminate.
It's no longer appropriate or acceptable to use race as explicitly as a justification for discrimination. Instead, today we label people of color criminals, primarily through the war on drugs. We label them felons, and then engage in all the practices we supposedly left behind.
LA Progressive reports the numbers back up Alexander's theory. Even though studies have shown that whites use and sell illegal drugs at rates equal to or above blacks, in some black inner-city communities, 4 of 5 black youth can expect to be caught up in the criminal justice system during their lifetimes.
You know, the Most High said that he was going to appoint terror over us. You see, when we had an opportunity to do right, we chose not to do right. So he appointed terror over us. He said he's going to put us in a land where the land of our enemies were going to eat us up. This is why you see the police brutality that's going on. Now, many of us, we look at these things and it really hurts us to see these things happening to our people. But we have to understand why these things are happening. Historically, if the children of Israel were out of order, the Most High would pour out a judgment on them, you see. And through the Christian church, we've been taught lies to where we think, oh, as many times as we sin, he will forgive us and all of this fluffy stuff. But when you look at the reality of things, the prophecies that were put forth in Scripture, they are coming to pass just like the Most High said they would. He said, my word is going forth out of my mouth and it will not return void. So we continue to see our young people dying in the streets because there is a continuance of disobedience. This terror that he's appointed over us, of course, there is a time of deliverance at hand, but we as a people, if we want to see things change, we have got to repent. This is why we have to get in the Word and understand who is talking about in certain passages. You see, we've been told through Christianity that certain things don't matter. That's not true. There are things that do matter, and you simply cannot ignore these things. Understand who a certain passage or verse or chapter is talking about and who it's talking to. Because all of this stuff about it don't matter, yes it does. That's why you see our young people dying out in the streets.
Shh, the lawyer speaking.
It's important in the midst of all the public vilifying of the police department, whose members acted completely within procedure, to remember Mr. McQuillan was no angel.
What?
What does that mean?
Why would they even say that? What does that even mean?
Talking about somebody's child. That could easily be one of these children here.
That could have been one of us.
No, sweetie, no. Because if you get stopped by the cops, you are gonna do exactly what they say, okay?
She's right. Listen to me. If you have to talk to the cops, there's only 7 words you need to know. Yes, sir. No, sir. And thank you, sir.
Exactly. You make sure you live to fight your case in court. You hear me?
Oh, Mama! Enough! Wake up! Let's say they listen to the cops and get in the car. Look what happened to Freddie Gray.
Yeah, and what if they make it all the way to the station? You remember Sandra Bland?
And let's say they do make it to trial. You see where that gets us? Don't you get it, Bo? The system is rigged against us.
Maybe it is, Dre. But I don't want to feel like my kids are living in a world that is so flawed that they can't have any hope.
Oh, so you want to talk about hope, Bo? Obama ran on hope. Remember when he got elected? And we felt like maybe, just maybe, we got out of that bad place and made it to a good place. That the whole country was really ready to turn the corner. You remember that amazing feeling we had during the inauguration? I was sitting right next to you. And we were so proud. And we saw him get out of that limo and walk alongside of it and wave to that crowd. Tell me you weren't terrified when you saw that. Tell me you weren't worried that someone was going to snatch that hope away from us like they always do. That is the real world, Bo. And our children need to know that that's the world that they live in. Come on. Let's finish watching.